The Penn State Nittany Lions under James Franklin have had a problem. They cannot win against the marquee opponents on their schedule. For example, they have not beaten Michigan since the COVID year. For example, they haven't beaten Ohio State since 2016. And more recently, in their major bowl games, they have not beaten SEC opponents such as Ole Miss last year, Arkansas in 2021. And if you go back even further, in 2018, they lost to the Kentucky Wildcats. Now, this season is a different story. We turn the page. This is a very talented roster, and James Franklin has assembled the coordinators, I think, that will help them succeed and maybe beat a big time opponent. Let's find out here on this season preview episode with Big Ten Quick Talk. Your host here. Just make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. That's all I ask. And let's dive in here. This video will be in two parts. The first part will be a roster breakdown, and the second part will be a schedule breakdown. So first, let's go over the roster breakdown. Before we dive into that, I do want to talk about the Penn State coaching that they have right now. They brought in Andy Kotelnicki. I think that was a fabulous hire to run the offense. And he said, and his mantra was that they need to bring more explosive and bigger plays to the passing game, which I totally agree with. And I think that needs to happen in order for Penn State to do well this season. On the defensive side, they brought in former Indiana head coach Tom Allen. I wasn't as impressed with that hire, but I still think that hire will turn out relatively well. I think they will miss Manny Diaz. I think that he is a better defensive coordinator than Tom Allen will be, but Tom Allen will still be a decent defensive coordinator. The real problem, again, he isn't a problem. It's just this stigma that James Franklin has where he cannot win the big game and he can't manage the big games correctly. And that remains to be seen whether he can relinquish some of the reins to guys like Andy Kotelnicki and Tom Allen, or will he keep doing what he's been doing? So that's what I wanted to get out of the way here first, just in terms of the coaching staff. Now let's go to the actual roster, and we will go over the potential strengths and potential weaknesses as we go through here. So starting on the offense with the quarterback position, Drew Aller, one of the biggest question marks, in my opinion, in all of college football. He started to make his way up to playing at a higher level at the end of last season, then kind of fell off a cliff in the bowl game, and that's where all this talk about can Drew Aller be decent, can he take them to the next level, came from, really, in my opinion. That and the Michigan game and the Ohio State game, I think, really caused all this talk. But it does remain to be seen, and it is merited by his play last year. Can he find a step up? Can he get up to a second gear? He really showed that he's a talented player, but can he take a step up? And with a guy like Andy Kotelnicki running the offense, like we talked about earlier, I think, and I'm inclined to say, that he will take that step up. But he needs to show that he can do that, but Andy Kotelnicki, the offensive coordinator, will help him to do that much more so than the previous offensive coordinator. At running back, probably the strongest position on this team, I gave it an A, and because they are really, really good. Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, probably the best 1-2 punch anywhere in the whole country. Nick Singleton, really great player. Katron Allen, elite player. These two guys will be carrying this offense. And now we move to the wide receiver tight end position. The tight end here really is what's holding this up. This was, if you're grading just the wide receivers, I think that this is more of a C plus type of room. But Tyler Warren is a elite tight end, in my opinion, 6'6", over 260 pounds. And I think that he showed in the bowl game that he is going to be elite, and I think that he will be elite. But this wide receiver room, man, if they didn't get Julian Fleming, this room would be more like a D, because this room outside of Julian Fleming is not very good. Harrison Wallace III and Caden Saunders will be starting, and I don't think they're very good, in my opinion. Yes, they do have some experience, but and they returned from last year, but I just don't think they're very good at all. And Julian Fleming, I don't think is a number one receiver. I think he's more of a number two receiver. He played number four receiver on Ohio State. I just don't think he's wide receiver one material. Don't get me wrong, he'll be good because he'll get a billion targets, but I don't think that he has the talent to be a number one wide receiver. The offensive line for Penn State, our next position group we will follow. I gave it a B. Um, there's a lot of turnover here, but I do see some spots in this offensive line that I do like. I think a guy to look out for is Cooper Cousins. He's a freshman, highly touted, plays in the interior offensive line, and I think that he may make his way into a starting position by the start of this year. Everything coming out from the Penn State camp has been glowing about him, and I think that he might end up starting. Transfer in Nolan Rucci, I think, will be pretty good at tackle. Drew Shelton on the other side, I think, will be good. And their center, Nick Dawkins, I think, will be pretty good as well. But I can't really go higher than a B here. But they do have room to progress up to more of a B plus, A minus level. Now to the defensive side of the ball. At defensive line, I have an A minus only because of the interior of this defensive line. I don't think the interior is quite A quality. Guys like Zane Durant and Devon Ellis, I don't think are quite A quality players. But really, the spotlight goes to the edge players. Abdul Carter, probably one of the best edge players in the country. And then Dennis Sutton also is an underrated name to watch on the other side. And he will, much like Odessa Isaac last year, where he benefited from elite edge play on the other side. Dennis Sutton, I think, will benefit from elite edge play on the other side with Abdul Carter, if that makes any sense. So I couldn't quite put this at this grade as an A because of the interior. I don't think the interior is as good as an A quality. But again, players like Abdul Carter, they're definitely A quality players. I just don't think the room is A quality yet, but I do think it's very close with an A minus. At linebacker, I have an A minus as well. I think I'm a little bit higher on this room than a lot of people. I really like Kobe King playing that middle linebacker position, and I'm also higher on guys like Tony Rojas, Dominic DeLuca, who are going to be starting at linebacker as well. At the cornerback position, this is where Penn State got a significant upgrade with that impact transfer, A.J. Harris. A.J. Harris coming over from Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, off the top of my head. And I gave this grade a B plus because I do think that players like Cam Miller and Jalen Reed will be good. I'm just not too sure at the safety position. Zaki Wheatley will be starting at free safety, most likely. And at strong safety, most likely Kevin Winston Jr. This all according to ourlads.com. Great place to find depth charts. And I do think that these players will be good, but I need to see them take a step up to be elite. And so this is my roster breakdown. So we now go to the Penn State schedule. Notice that this is a breakdown, not a prediction. My predictions will come later in the summer, and as we go through, you will notice that this is a breakdown, not a prediction. So as we go through games where I think Penn State has a 0 to 30% chance of winning, I'll put in orange. Pick'em games, pretty understandable. That will be in the navy blue. And games that I think Penn State will have a 60 to 80% chance of winning will be in purple. And then games that I think Penn State will win fairly handily will be in the light blue. So let's get started here. So, my initial thoughts on this schedule are it's pretty darn easy for a school as talented as Penn State is. All things considered, I think that they really lucked out this year, all things considered. Now, as we go to the teams that I think that Penn State will win fairly handily, not saying that they won't win any of the other ones on their schedule. I just think that these ones are the ones that I just think are certified, ones that I think you can just write in Sharpie right now. Versus Bowling Green, versus Kent State, versus Illinois, versus UCLA, and versus Maryland. Games all at home, games that they will be favored in by 21 plus points, games that I think that they will win by 20 plus points, especially when you get into Big Ten play. We'll just cancel out Bowling Green and Kent State here just for the sake of it. But when they play host to Illinois, I don't think will be a very good program this year. They just don't have the talent at many key positions, especially at quarterback, I think, to succeed. Versus UCLA, a rebuilding program. I think a program that will get back there soon as in 2 to 3 years. But this year's just going to be hard for UCLA as they have many holes on their roster. And then versus Maryland, where I don't think they have a very good head coach in Mike Locksley. He's really only there to recruit, and he's not doing a very good job of that. That's a topic for another day, though, with Maryland. But these are all games that I think that Penn State will win fairly handily. 24 points, 27, 28 points. In the case of Bowling Green and Kent State, you could get up into the 30 range, 40 range, even depending on how Drew Aller is playing. Our next stage, since I don't think that Penn State will be favored by 0 to 30% chance, meaning I don't think there's a game that Penn State will not be favored in by more than a touchdown. We'll go to the purple region that you see on your screen now. The games that I think Penn State will be favored in, about 60 to 80% chance of winning for Penn State. And these teams include at UCLA versus Washington, at Purdue, and at Minnesota. At USC, I was very back and forth here, but I think at this stage in the game, Penn State will be riding high off of probably an undefeated start to the season, possibly a loss to West Virginia. We'll discuss that in a bit here, but I just think Penn State will be too good for USC. I don't think USC is going to really match up well with Penn State, at least on the defensive side of the ball. So I think that Penn State will win that game. I would put it at more 60-40 Penn State lean, in my opinion. Versus Washington. Washington, a team that's going to get the short end of the stick this year. They're going to lose a lot of games, in my opinion, though not being a very bad team. It's not like they're going to be a terrible team. Is that they're just going to be stuck behind a very, in my opinion, deep Big Ten, especially in playing teams like Penn State. That's just my opinion, a topic for another day again. Penn State, I would give them about a 75-80% lean in this matchup. Just the game being at home and everything, but Washington being a team that just came off a national championship and a team that still retains some pretty darn good players and brings in a couple like Will Rogers at quarterback that I think could make this a game, but I still think that Penn State will win. At Purdue, a team that I'm not really sold on yet. I'm not sold on their head coach, and I'm not sold on their roster yet. I'm definitely not sold on Hudson Card yet at all. He's going to have to prove to me that he can play very well. But this game being at Purdue really helps them out, and Purdue has known to play spoiler a couple times versus some pretty good teams. So for that reason, among a couple others, I think that this game, not really a certified win, but I would favor Penn State by about 70% in this game. At Minnesota, I think a team on the downward spiral. They have an FCS quarterback playing quarterback for them. Just doesn't bode well for me, Minnesota, this year. But this game being at Minnesota has incredible fans. They have an incredible stadium. And I just think that'll help them out. I still give Penn State here about a 65-70% lean. And finally, we get to the pick'em games at West Virginia Week 1, at Wisconsin Week 9, and versus Ohio State Week 10. I will address West Virginia and Wisconsin in a bit, but let's talk about Ohio State first. If this game is a whiteout this at night, it will turn a whole lot more interesting, but it looks to me like this game will be a big noon kickoff game. That in its own right will be great, but I think if Penn State can pull some strings here and make it a whiteout game, their whiteout game, and make it at night, that would really bode well for Penn State. But I do give Ohio State here about a 55-45 lean. I think Ohio State has just had Penn State's number throughout the years. Like I mentioned, Penn State hasn't beaten Ohio State since 2016 when honestly, they kind of lucked out a little bit, but they're 1-9 through the past 10 games that they've played versus Ohio State. But if James Franklin is really serious about changing that stigma that he has, right there is a great game to do it. That game being at home, that game being a primetime game, be it at night, be it at big noon, either way, it's still going to be a very imposing crowd as Penn State has some of the best fans in the game. Now let's address at West Virginia and at Wisconsin. I still think that Penn State has the edge in these games. I would put it at about 55, between 55 to 60% chance Penn State wins both of these games. But I have different reasons for both teams for an upset. At West Virginia, West Virginia quiet was about the quietest 9-3 team last year. They went 9-3 last year. They really showed that they were a good team under Neil Brown, and they look to be very good as well this year. And again, they're getting slept on. I'm going to bang this drum. West Virginia keeps getting slept on. They're going to be a good team this year. But that game being at West Virginia, more of a rivalry type setting in week one, non-conference game. Maybe you catch Drew Aller just not playing his best ball like he will be in later weeks of the season. But I think that West Virginia holds a strong chance of winning against Penn State. Now, do I think that they will win? Well, that's for the predictions videos in a couple weeks here as we approach August. But let me tell you, I do think that Penn State has the edge here in this matchup pretty decisively. I just think because of all the factors that I named and some other ones that I think West Virginia holds a strong chance of pulling the upset. And at Wisconsin, this will be coming off of the bye, Penn State's second bye, so it'll be a little bit easier. But any game at Camp Randall is going to be a fight for your life. It does not matter who you are. Even when Alabama comes to Wisconsin, that will be a fight for their life in week 3. Wisconsin is one of the toughest places to play in all of college football, especially when you get to the end of that third quarter and jump around starts playing. And when you go into that fourth quarter and that crowd is rocking, and if Wisconsin is in it, they will find a way to take it down to the last couple series. And Penn State isn't a team that's going to pull away from teams really easily unless you're a Bowling Green, Kent State, or Illinois, UCLA. But when it's against a team like Wisconsin, Penn State, I don't know if they're going to be able to pull away from Wisconsin as easily as they really should or could. So I could see this game flipping to Wisconsin. Right now, I would give Penn State about a 55-45 lean. That could stretch up to 60, depending on my mood, But I do think that Penn State still has a good chance of winning this game. But for those factors, I think that Wisconsin has a pretty good chance of the upset like West Virginia. So thank you guys for watching so much, and I will see you guys in the next one. Make sure to like and subscribe. It's the best and most efficient way to support the channel. And comment your thoughts down below on Penn State. Will Drew Aller take the next step? How are y'all feeling about the defense? The wide receiver room, plenty of concern there. How are y'all feeling about that? All right, I will see you guys in the next one.